Hello everyone, welcome back to Bascar Bricks, and today it's my very first comparison video. Now if you have not seen my recent video where I reviewed the newest 2020 Anakin's Jedi Interceptor, I did say I was going to be comparing it to the 2005 Anakin's Jedi Interceptor. Before I get into comparing them, please make sure you if you do enjoy this video, please make sure you, of course, leave a like and even possibly consider subscribing. Any support is greatly appreciated. Also, make sure you do check out both reviews on these, as of course this is from Anakin's Jedi. This is from Jedi Starfighter and Vulture Droid, meaning, of course, there's more to this set than just this. And of course, there's also the minifigs for this too, and of course the box instructions for both. I'm purely just going to be looking at both the builds here, not the minifigs. So do make sure you do check out both those videos. Well, let's get into comparing the two. Here, I'm not really going to see which one is better. I just purely want to see what has changed in the, I think now, what is it, 16 years that have gone by between the two? That's a pretty long time. Now, the very first thing that comes out to me are the colors. Just look, this has mostly dark gray. This has mostly light gray. I think that's kind of interesting. Like, let's look at both of them from a side angle, and you'll really see that start to happen. While we're at a side angle, you can see a couple more things, like they use a shield piece with a sticker on there, and then there they just use the standard plate. And let's look at the stickers on these. Couple of interesting things here. That actually has a white outline. That sticker basically takes up the entire piece there. Well, this sticker is a little bit smaller, but overall they look very, very similar. The pattern here is just a little bit different than it is there. And while we're also here, you can see a couple of other things that they use a sticker there for that detailing, but there's also a hole right there where it is not present here. So that's also pretty interesting. Overall in this one, there's just a little bit more detail along here, as you can see there, compared to that. And one other thing of interest, and look at these side guns right there compared to the one there. That's a little bit more hidden and done just a little bit nicer in that sense. Also, interestingly, they use both of those pieces, but this is moved back while that is more forward. I also think it's pretty interesting. One thing that definitely has changed that they converted a lot of stickers into brick built things. Like, do you hear that's a sticker there? But that detail is done, just with plates, which I think is pretty interesting. One thing you've definitely probably noticed is the weaponry on the front. That is just purely in dark gray, and that is just purely in light gray, so it's another color swap, but that has blue bits at the end, which is an interesting design choice, as it definitely, I don't know, this is definitely more accurate, but I think that definitely feels more of a powerful weapon because that's kind of an interesting trade-off that they made there. Now, I think looking more at the back of the two models, you can see how differently they did the engines. And also, this is much taller. This is quite a, no, not by like a super big amount, but it is definitely taller. I'll get more into, more into specifics of that in a sec. But here, there's how they did the engines there, and there's how they did the engines there. Personally, I like this better. That still doesn't look that bad, though. The engines there just look a little bit smaller there. Now, here's probably one of the few elements where this model gets a giant, quite a big advantage. Worth mentioning, this canopy studded down, while this is not studded down. But I think that this also has its advantages, though. Now, they actually open up differently. This opens up with a hinge piece, while could potentially come off easier. This does tend to move around, but that's a little bit more solid now. You can probably see that there's quite the difference in interior space. Let's look at this interior space. I have a minifig here, an anonymous random minifigure. Now, he has to be seated just about all the way back to be in there, so he cannot touch the console piece while he's in there. if you lean him forward to be able to grab it, it won't go on all the way. But if we look at, if we compare that to this one, not only can he sit down fully, and excuse me, the landing gear there, which I was going to get to, so that is also an issue with the landing gear, though. One of the few issues with it is that that can happen, so you do need to grab a little bit. But just look at the guy in there, though. Not only is he sitting up all the way, but look at all the other... Not only does he have a full seat piece, he has extra room in the back, plus 2 consoles and a control stick. So that's pretty interesting. There's quite a bit more interior space in this one, but that is not just a dumb design thing on Lego. That was done for the reason with the spring-loaded shooters, which are integrated in a place where they cannot have such a deep cockpit. So I think that's a really, really interesting trade-off there. I don't. Which one do you guys think is better? Would you prefer to have spring-loaded shooters or a better cockpit? I think it's an interesting trade-off. I think it just kind of depends on what kid you are. I think when I was little, I would have preferred more of a cockpit. I never was interested in the shooting stuff, really. But some kids might like the shooting stuff. Now, let's get on to the something else. Now, as you can see here, this is taller because it has landing gear. This one does not. This one does not have landing gear, purely because of the R2-D2 things. Now, of course, that is not a minifig. I'm not showing the minifigs, but there's a slot for R2-D2 in there. But honestly, it sacrifices the landing gear, which makes it doesn't look as great from that angle. And they use 2 of them, even though one of them is not used, so I guess it does let it sit down good. Actually, it looks great from an angle like this, you know. But once you look at it from straight on, maybe like high up on a shelf, maybe it doesn't look as great. Now let's compare it to this one, which is now high off the ground. The landing gear can be adjusted to pose it a bit better. Oh yes, but as you've seen, it can fall down when you put pressure. When you put enough pressure on it. When I was pressing down on it probably a bit too hard, so that's also a bit on me. But yeah, I don't know, which one do you guys prefer? Of course, having the R2-D2 head just in there without the bulk underneath definitely may add a little bit to the display ability to this, because you know, now you have the landing gear, which looks better. It looks a bit more almost professional, if that makes any sense. But also, I think one thing to really look at is, you know, these canopy prints have not changed very much. This one has a little bit of silver lining on it. You know, they really haven't changed all too much. They're very, very similar. Overall, these models for 16 years have not changed very significantly. You know, a lot of it just works in the same way. You know, the canopy opens up just about the same. Of course, that is an extra stud. You know, both the wings open up exactly the same. In fact, both the wings are in practically the exact same place. You know, the dimensions and sizes of both of these are practically the same. So I think it just shows you how well Lego did the first one. There's not too many changes, of course, on this. The most change is just on the detail in the wings. But also, one thing I just forget to note is actually something pretty interesting there. That is a printed piece right there. That is a tiny little sticker. I think that's pretty interesting. You know, both of these models are pretty interesting to compare both of them. Of course, I'm not going to compare which one is better in terms of value, because this came with a vulture droid. And of course, this came with an extra minifig, but you know, the vulture droid, of course, has the better value. But these two are just so similar. Like they have grill pieces in the same places on the sides here. Just the same spots. So this is a really interesting comparison between the two. Not much. The biggest change is the landing gear. Honestly, I like the landing gear better than this. While I do get putting an astromech droid in there is important for play, I think that it could have been, I don't know. I think they could have gotten around it somehow. I think it's within the realm of possibilities. But the interesting thing to me is this cockpit, though, because let's go back to the cockpits here. Extra room in there, not hardly any room in there. Of course, that's because they spring-loaded shooters personally. What I think Lego should have done is somehow put him on the wings right there and somehow added some sort of button to press it down. That might be a little bit of a complex contraption. Or maybe they could just put it on the ends of the wings somehow. Maybe in that area around there, because I think that the cockpit in this one is much better than it is in here. Personally, I'm definitely slightly disappointed with here. The detail in here is just there, you know. Those stickers are both unique. They're both different stickers right there. And this only just has one single sticker, which Anakin cannot even reach. This really feels like he's more at the controls when he is grabbing an actual control stick. Well, here, you know, grabbing anything, you're leaning all the way back. Personally, the seat looks a little bit awkward to me. Why I like this seat better? This looks more slicker. Him being more in the cockpit, not to mention he's not looking out, he's looking forward. So it just feels like he's in there better. Not to mention that little bit of room in the back. Why there's that little bit of Technic axle sticking up. Yeah, honestly, I've never had any issues with this coming off. And I don't see why this being studded down is actually, too big of a deal, as no one's going to pick it up from the cockpit. You can't pick it up from the cockpit here. It's not like swooshing up. Speaking of swooshing around, comparing the swooshability of the two, like if you take this in terms of how easy it is to grab, they are also very similar. In fact, the landing gear almost gives you a nice place to put your fingers. But this is also very similar, as some of those pieces also just gives you a nice place to put them. Now, in terms of swooshability, they're very simple. Sorry, very similar. As you do, in terms of stuff to do with them, while you do have the spring, I think that it's interesting. Of course, you can put the minifigure in the cockpits. But on here you can, of course, you have the same amount of wings on each one. Also interesting, that can fold all the way up there, which I think is kind of cool. So the landing gear definitely is a slightly bit flimsy, which is interesting. It's an interesting little trade-off, which is probably why they removed it, because when you press down on it too hard, it falls down. But personally, I don't know. Like, as a display item, it's better, but as a play item, it's potentially worse. But also, you do have that, being able to, like, land it smoothly on the landing gear. Well, this one, it's not, like, landing on anything, which, in terms of accuracy, this just makes more sense to have the landing gear, because otherwise Anakin's just going to be scraping up the bottom of the ship every time he lands. So this is a really interesting comparison. It's going on to 13 minutes, so I'm going to try to wrap it up here. So, yeah, I think I'm not here to find out which one is better. For the most part, probably this one. Of course, it's been 16 years, but it's not like a huge difference, though, so it's not like a massive loss for this one. Because, truthfully, they're extraordinarily similar. Of course, we've had new pieces for this one, and better building technique, so naturally, it's a super, super close comparison between the two. And I am very, very surprised to see how little has changed in 16 years. One thing I did forget to do is just hold them up like that. Look how similar the dimensions are between the two. That's kind of nuts. They're very, very similar. I could see them both flying together in a space battle. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, I think that might do it all for today. Please let me know, which one do you like better? Of course, I don't know which one I like better. As a collector, automatically, I love vintage Lego. So this I already like this a lot. But also, this one just looks cool and has a certain feel to it that I like. So, I don't know. It's interesting. It's very, very interesting comparing the two. I'd like to get more Interceptors in the future to hopefully do an updated comparison where we can get maybe 3 or 4 of these. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, that's gonna be do it all for today. Please tell me your thoughts on this. If you end up enjoying the video, make sure you, of course, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.